She said it like a secret that slipped out before she could stop it, voice low, like the sound of rain against a window. And for a second, I forgot to breathe. She'd moved in 3 months ago, the woman from across the hall. Her name, Clara, was the first thing I learned. The second was how she never rushed. Not when she spoke, not when she walked, not even when the elevator doors threatened to close. She always made time obey her. I told myself I noticed because we were neighbors. That's all. But it was the way she carried herself, like someone who'd lived long enough to know when silence mattered more than small talk. The first real conversation happened on a Sunday morning. I was heading out with a mug of instant coffee, hair uncombed, half awake. She was watering the small fern by her door, wearing an oversized sweater that looked too soft for real life. "Morning," I said. She looked up, smiled, then tilted her head slightly. "You're the one who keeps leaving his shoes outside." I froze mid-step. "Yeah. Sorry." It's fine," she interrupted, still smiling. "They make the hallway feel lived in." Something about the way she said lived in made me feel like she was talking about more than just the hallway. After that, we crossed paths often, sometimes by accident, sometimes not. She'd leave her door half open while playing soft jazz. I'd linger by mine longer than I needed to. There was never a plan. Just gravity. She spoke with the calm of someone who'd seen too many people rush through the best parts of their lives. I listened too carefully, trying not to. One evening, rain started early, a slow, patient kind of rain that blurred the world outside. I was locking my door when hers opened. She stood there, barefoot, holding a candle in one hand and a bottle of wine in the other. "Power's out," she said, glancing toward the flickering hallway light. "I was going to drink alone." "You?" I hesitated, then nodded. Inside, her apartment smelled like cedar and citrus. The air hummed quietly, rain, candle crackle, her soft hum as she poured 2 glasses. She handed me one, fingers brushing mine just enough to feel intentional. "Cheers," she said. "To unexpected company." The room was dim. Her face was half shadowed, half glow, and when she laughed, it wasn't loud. It was the kind of sound that filled every quiet place in me. We talked about nothing, favorite seasons, bad movies, places either of us had gone. But every pause said more than the words. Sometimes she'd look at me too long, then glance away, as if something in my expression made her remember herself. "You remind me of..." She started once, then stopped, swirling her wine. "Never mind." I wanted to ask, but didn't. I just watched her instead, the small crease between her brows, the way she breathed out through her nose like she just remembered something she shouldn't have. When she reached to set down her glass, her hand brushed my knee. Not by mistake. Neither of us moved. The rain pressed harder against the windows. I could hear both our breaths now, shallow, careful. She turned to me, eyes soft but searching. "I shouldn't," she whispered. The lights flickered back on, sudden, bright, too real. She blinked, pulling her hand back like she'd touched fire. And then, quietly, so quiet I almost thought I imagined it. "You make me forget I ever waited for anyone else." The words hung there between us, raw and unguarded. Then came the sound of a knock, sharp, unexpected, at her door. Her eyes widened, and in the candle's dying glow she whispered, almost to herself, "Don't say anything." After that night, nothing between us returned to normal, though we both tried to pretend it did. She still nodded when we passed in the hallway. Still smiled, still said good morning. But now, every glance seemed to last half a breath too long. And I still couldn't stop replaying the way she'd looked at me before the knock, like she'd almost let herself fall. The next evening, I found her sitting on the building's rooftop terrace. She was alone, a book open in her lap, hair caught in the wind. A mug sat beside her, half empty and forgotten. I hesitated before stepping closer. "Didn't think anyone else came up here," I said. She looked over, one eyebrow raised. "Most people don't." "Then I guess I'm not most people." That earned me a small smile, Tired, genuine, maybe even fond. She nodded to the chair beside her. Sit. But only if you promise not to talk too much. I sat. And for a while, we didn't say anything. Just the hum of traffic below, the sound of her flipping pages she didn't seem to read. Finally I asked, You live alone? Her hand froze mid-turn. Most of the time, she said softly. Divorced. A long time ago. I nodded, pretending not to notice the edge in her tone. She closed the book. You? No one, I said. Not for a while. She gave me a small, sideways glance. That's surprising. You seem like someone who gets noticed. I laughed quietly. Maybe. But being noticed and being seen aren't the same thing. She looked away, and I knew I'd said something that reached her. The air grew cooler. She pulled the sleeves of her sweater over her hands. People talk, she murmured. Neighbors. The age thing, it's not nothing. I tried to sound casual. Let them talk. But the truth was, I understood. I'd seen the way people looked at her, graceful, composed, always a little out of reach. And me. I was still learning where I fit in the world. When she leaned closer to grab her mug, her shoulder brushed mine. She didn't move away immediately. Her perfume, something faint and floral, made my pulse jump. You make it sound simple, she whispered. But it isn't. I know, I said. I just don't want to pretend it's not there. Her eyes lifted to mine, slow, searching. The city lights flickered against them like distant stars. Then she reached out, almost absently, and brushed an eyelash from my cheek. Her fingers lingered, longer than they should have, warm against my skin. Neither of us spoke. The air between us thickened, heavy with everything we didn't know how to say. Finally, she withdrew her hand carefully, like it hurt to do so. Good night, she said, barely above a whisper. But before she turned to leave, she hesitated. Her hand rested briefly on my arm, a soft, fleeting touch that said this isn't over, even if her words didn't. And just like that, she was gone. Only her warmth remained. Days passed in fragments, short glances in the hallway, shared smiles that meant too much. We both knew something had shifted. And yet neither of us mentioned it. She'd built her life on composure. I was learning how to undo mine. That Thursday evening, she knocked on my door, 2 light taps, then silence. When I opened it, she stood there holding a dish towel, eyes somewhere between apology and invitation. My stove's acting up again, she said. You mind looking? I followed her inside, pretending it was casual. But the moment the door clicked shut behind me, the air changed, heavy, alive. The kitchen smelled faintly of rosemary and something sweeter, like wine she hadn't finished. A half-empty glass sat near the sink, lipstick mark catching the light. I bent to check the pilot light. She stood close, too close, her voice low beside me. I've never been good at waiting, she said. For what? Her paws stretched. For things that feel right at the wrong time. I turned to face her. Her eyes met mine, steady, unflinching, and then softened, as if she regretted saying it aloud. Before either of us could speak again, her phone buzzed on the counter. A name flashed across the screen, Evelyn, work. She reached for it quickly, voice calm but tight. Hey. Yes, I'm home. No, it's fine. Just the stove. My neighbor's helping. A small glance my way. Her tone sharpened. He's young, Evelyn. Relax. The call ended. She exhaled slowly, setting the phone down. Sorry, she murmured. People assume too much. I tried to smile, but it came out uneven. Maybe they just see what's there. Her laugh was soft, tired. You really shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because you don't know where the line is yet. We stood in the quiet, inches apart. Her hand rested on the edge of the counter, mine beside it. Our fingers almost touched. Outside, thunder rolled in, distant but growing. The lights flickered once, twice, before steadying. She looked up at me then, really looked, like she was weighing every reason not to. "You should go," she whispered. I didn't move. "Do you want me to?" Her breath caught, a small sound, almost a sigh. "I don't know what I want." She took a step closer. The scent of her, clean linen, rain, something human, filled the space between us. Her hand rose, fingers hovering near my face, hesitant. And then, another knock. Sharp. Urgent. She froze. I stepped back. A man's voice came through the door. "Clara? You in there?" Her expression changed, the calm mask returning like armor. "It's just Daniel," she whispered. "A friend." Her words were steady, but her hand trembled as she smoothed her hair. When she turned to answer the door, she caught my sleeve, quick, quiet, and looked at me for just a second longer than she should have. That look said everything we weren't allowed to say. And when the door opened, the distance between us was only physical, barely that. After Daniel's visit, things grew quieter. Not distant, just careful. She avoided my eyes in the hallway now. I started taking the long way home, pretending not to listen for her door. But gravity doesn't fade. It hides, waits. It found us again on a Saturday. The storm had been building all afternoon, low thunder and gray light filling the corridors. When I reached my apartment, her door was slightly ajar. "Clara?" She appeared, holding the edge of the frame, hair loose, no makeup, something unguarded in the way she looked at me. "The power's out again," she said softly. "I didn't want to sit alone this time." I nodded before thinking. Inside, the candles flickered across the walls, light and shadow moving over her like breath. She was sitting on the couch, wrapped in a throw blanket, bare feet tucked under her. I sat across from her, trying not to watch the way the light traced her collarbone. "About the other night," she began, eyes on her hands. "Daniel's just someone I used to work with. He's protective." "I didn't ask," I said quietly. She looked up. "No, but you wanted to." Silence fell again, thick and fragile. Then she said, barely above a whisper, "You make it hard to keep things simple." I leaned forward before I knew I was moving. "Then don't keep them simple." Her eyes widened, and for a heartbeat I thought she'd tell me to leave. But instead, she exhaled, slow, uneven, and said, "You're too young to understand what that means. Try me." She stood pacing once, then stopped near the window. "I've spent years building a life that doesn't depend on anyone. I'm not supposed to need this." Her voice cracked on the last word. I rose, stepping closer. "Maybe you don't need it. But maybe you still want it." The rain began again, steady this time. I could hear her breathing. When she turned toward me, I saw it, the war between fear and want. "Say something," I whispered. "I can't." I reached out, fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face. She didn't move. My hand lingered, then slid to her jaw, thumb tracing the soft line beneath her lip. Her eyes fluttered shut. "This is wrong," she breathed. "Then why aren't you stopping me?" Her breath caught, half a gasp, half a plea. She leaned forward, almost against me. I felt the warmth of her body through the thin space that still existed. "Because," she began, voice trembling, "I'm tired of being right." Her hand found my wrist, holding it there against her cheek. Everything around us slowed, the flicker of light, the sound of rain, the thud of my pulse. We were so close the air seemed to vanish. I could feel her heartbeat under my palm, her lips parting just slightly. And then, a sharp knock on my door. Both of us froze. Her eyes opened, wide and terrified, and she whispered, "Don't move." But I already knew, whatever came next, we'd crossed the point of pretending. The knock at my door didn't stop. 3 sharp raps, impatient, deliberate. Clara stepped back, the candlelight flickering across her face. "You should open it," she whispered. I hesitated, heart still pounding. When I pulled the door open, Daniel stood there, the man from before, rain dripping off his jacket. His eyes moved from me to her, then to the candlelit apartment behind her. I tried your phone, he said, voice low but edged. You didn't answer. Clara crossed her arms. I said I needed space, Daniel. His jaw tightened. You said you needed time? That's not the same thing. The silence between them felt practiced, an argument they'd had before, now replaying with me as the unwelcome variable. He looked at me, eyes narrowing slightly. And you're the neighbor? I nodded once. He laughed, not kindly. Right. The neighbor. Daniel, she said sharply, stepping between us. Go home. But he didn't move. You do this, you know. You pull people in, then pretend you don't. Her shoulders stiffened. That's enough. He stared at her for another second, then shook his head and turned to leave. You'll regret this one, Clara. The door shut behind him. The echo lingered. For a moment neither of us spoke. The candle hissed softly, wax pulling at its base. Who is he really? I asked. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was quiet, resigned. My ex. He never really left. He still has a key I keep forgetting to change. I felt something cold settle in my chest, not anger, exactly, but the ache of realizing how little I knew about her. You should have told me. I know. She met my gaze, guilt written across her face. I didn't want to make this uglier than it already is. You mean us? She flinched at the word. Whatever this is, yes. I turned away, hands clenched at my sides. You keep pretending this doesn't exist, but it's the only thing either of us keeps coming back to. She moved closer. I could feel her presence before I felt her touch, the warmth of her hand ghosting near my arm, hesitating before resting there. I don't know how to stop wanting something that shouldn't happen, she whispered. I looked at her then, the tremor in her voice, the way her eyes glistened, the fine tremble of her fingers against me. Then don't stop. Her breath hitched. She stepped back, shaking her head. You don't understand. If he finds out, if people start, I don't care about people. But I do, she said louder now. Then softer. I've already lost enough. The room went quiet again, only rain, only heartbeats. I reached for her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. Our fingers interlaced, her pulse quick beneath my thumb. She looked up at me, eyes dark and unsteady. If we do this, she whispered, there's no pretending afterward. I know. Her lips parted, a shiver running through her. The space between us dissolved. Outside, thunder cracked, loud, final, as if marking a line we were both about to cross. And still, either of us moved back, the rain hadn't stopped. It had deepened, slow, relentless, like it meant to wash the night clean. We stood in the middle of her apartment, close enough to feel each other's breath. She looked at me with something fragile behind her eyes, a mix of want, fear, and the weight of too many years spent pretending she didn't need either. You should go, she said again. But the words came out softer than before, without conviction. I can't, I whispered. Not like this. Her eyes flickered, caught between fight and surrender. You don't know what you're asking for. Then tell me, I said. Tell me what it is that scares you. She drew in a slow breath, her shoulders trembling. It's not you. It's what comes after. The questions. The looks. The part where I start to believe I deserve something like this again, and then lose it. She turned away, pressing her hand against the edge of the table, her back rising and falling unevenly. I took a step forward, then another. You won't lose me, I said quietly. She let out a small, shaky laugh. You say that now. I reached out, my hand hovering above her arm before finally resting there. Her skin was warm, her body tense beneath my touch. She didn't pull away. Look at me, I murmured. She did, slowly, and the room seemed to shrink around us. The candlelight flickered across her face, catching the tears she hadn't meant to let fall. I brushed it away with my thumb. Her breath caught, her lips parted, barely a sound escaping. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Because you make me feel real. I said. Like I've stopped waiting for a life to begin. Something in her broke then, not loudly, not visibly, but I felt it in the way her hand came up to my chest, trembling, unsure. Her fingers curled into my shirt, pulling me just close enough for the air between us to disappear. Her forehead rested against mine. I could feel the warmth of her breath, the faint tremor in her voice when she said, "You shouldn't be here." "Then tell me to leave," I said. She didn't. Instead, she exhaled slowly, as though surrendering to something she'd been holding back for years. Her hands slid up to my face, her touch hesitant, reverent. And just as her lips brushed mine, she stopped. Eyes still closed, she whispered, "If we do this, there's no taking it back." I swallowed hard. "I don't want to." Her eyes opened, steady now. For the first time, there was no fear, no doubt, only clarity. She smiled, small and sad. "Then you'd better mean it." Our foreheads touched again, and this time, neither of us moved away. No thunder, no words, just the quiet understanding that whatever line we'd feared crossing, we already had. Morning came slowly, the kind that doesn't rush to fill the silence. Rain had stopped, leaving the windows blurred with soft light. Clara stood by the counter, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. She wore the same sweater from the night before, sleeves pushed up, hair a little tangled. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked unguarded. I watched her in that quiet, unsure what to say that wouldn't break it. Finally, she looked over her shoulder and smiled. "You're staring." "Probably," I said. "I'm still trying to believe you're real." Her smile softened, her eyes lowering just slightly, the kind of look that said she wasn't used to being seen this way anymore. She slid a mug toward me and sat across the table. The distance between us was small now, and not the kind that hurt. For a while, we just sat there. The world outside had that washed-clean feeling, like everything had been reset. She stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. "You know this isn't going to be easy," she said. "I don't want easy," I answered. "I just want honest." She looked at me for a long moment, like she was measuring the weight of that word. "Honest. I was married for almost 20 years," she said finally. "I learned how to disappear in plain sight. How to be needed, but never wanted. You make that hard to keep doing." I reached across the table, fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away this time. She turned her hand palm up, threading her fingers with mine. Her skin was cool from the coffee mug, but her grip was steady. "I don't care about the numbers," I said. "You make sense in ways nothing else has." She laughed quietly, eyes glistening. "You're too young to talk like that." "Then maybe you make me older." The silence after that wasn't awkward. It was full, heavy with the kind of understanding that didn't need to be spoken out loud. Later, as I stood by the door, ready to leave, she followed me, barefoot, still holding her coffee. "Hey," she said softly. When I turned, she was closer than I expected. She reached up, brushed a bit of lint from my jacket, then let her hand rest against my chest for a moment longer than necessary. "Last night," she started. "Yeah?" She smiled faintly. "It didn't feel like a mistake." I leaned forward just enough that our foreheads touched, the same quiet closeness as before, only now without fear. "It wasn't," I said. Her eyes closed, and for a breath, we just stayed there, still, steady, the kind of quiet that feels like peace. When I finally stepped back, she whispered, "You'll come back?" "Tomorrow," I said. "And probably the day after that." Her laughter was soft, tired but real. "Then I'll keep the coffee warm." The door clicked softly behind me. The hallway smelled like rain and something new, not a secret anymore, but a beginning. And for once, neither of us looked back.